Hi, I'm Shannon Grissom. Are you looking to ignite your creativity? Or how about be inspired by a steady stream of muses? Welcome to Painterly Life, the podcast that celebrates those who create, inspire, and innovate. So, whether you're looking to spark your next big idea, reignite your passion, or simply soak in some creative energy, this is the place for you. Painterly Life, where every guest is a new muse just for you. Welcome to Painterly Life. I'm your host, Shannon Grissom. Today's special guest is Mary Beth Harrison. Mary Beth is a joyful, award-winning painter. Her beautiful creations have graced the cover of several publications, and she has a deep, deep love for her community. You know, she's always the first to offer support to everyone. She's truly an artist. Welcome, Mary Beth.
Thank you so much, Shannon. It's great to be here.
So there was a time, you've done all these things, but there was a time when you actually called yourself an artist in waiting. So how did you get from there to here?
You know, in looking back, of course, you see things more clearly. As a child, art was my very favorite thing. I couldn't wait to do art in school. I loved having teachers who worked art into other lessons. If there was an art project after church or after school or in the brownies or in any kind of group, I was all over it. It brought me so much joy, and I got a lot of great positive feedback. I had the excellent high school art teacher. I got to learn so many different mediums, but somehow after high school, I just kind of let it go. I went to college. I majored in biology. I loved drawing little parameciums, but I kind of let my art go, and I didn't even realize it. And so as the years went by, I had a 35-year teaching career. I raised two children. We moved to the country. I saw this amazing beauty all around me all the time. And every once in a while, I would say to my husband, when I retire, I'm going to be one of those little old ladies that takes evening painting classes. And for my 50th birthday, long before I retired, he gave me an entire painting setup and said, there's no reason to wait. Get started. So I did.
Well, I mean, what a beautiful gift, not only for you, but for all of us who get to enjoy your art. It's just great. So, what are you working on now?
Well, post Christmas is kind of you take a couple of weeks off painting to do family things, and it always takes a little bit of grief to get those wheels moving again. So I like to start with things I'm very comfortable with, things that don't take a lot of planning or drawing skills. Going out in nature is always a great way to get inspired. This was the first thing I painted when I got back to painting after taking a Christmas holiday. And this was just a scene from a hike through Yosemite in the fall. I like scenes like that when you're just wanting to get loose because it doesn't matter how many trees I put in it or where the leaves are. The shape of the trail is all up to me. It can be very imaginative. Nothing has to be precise. There's no buildings in it. It's a great way to get back into it. And I'm looking forward to continuing my exploration of California as my palette. And I'm getting outside to paint in all of our good weather days. We went out yesterday with the group, and it's always so much joy.
Were you always a loose painter, or did you have to do some shifting to get there?
I've always been attracted to loose painting, but when you learn, you need to get all the fundamentals down. And even in loose painting, you need to know some things about color mixing, color theory, perspective. So I've heard artists say that as you get better, you get looser, which seems counterintuitive, but it does seem to work that way. But in the end, if you want to be a realistic painter, that's all wonderful. That's not my goal. I love impressionism. I want to convey the joy and the light and the feeling of that scene. I don't need all the minutiae to be perfect.
And how did you've done a lot of still life, you've done lots of different subjects. How did you, or what fueled your passion for plein air painting? Because you're doing a lot of that right now.
Well, I I feel very blessed to live in a beautiful area, and I'm so inspired by nature's beauty that you've got to get outside to see it. There's nothing like it. They call it forest bathing just to renew your soul, but for an artist, being out in it is where you see what it actually looks like because photographs don't always tell the whole truth. The shadows can be too dark, the light can be too light. There are things you can't see in a photograph that you can when you're out there. I live in a very small town that I also love very much. And one of the first paintings I ever did that actually made me feel like my art can make a difference was a painting of just the downtown in my small town. I painted it for my daughter who had gone away to college and was homesick. And I got to show it to local people because he was coming for Christmas, so I hung on to it for a while. And people loved it so much they asked me to put it on cards and tote bags and things like that. And that was in 2014. That image is still one of my best sellers, even though it's been hanging in my daughter's living room all these years now. But even her friends who come to her house and look at it think it's a pretend place. They say, that's not real, is it? They're like, yeah, that's my hometown. That's where I grew up. And it's just, people say, well, you made it look so magical. I'm like, it is magical. The buildings are old and beautiful. The street kind of does an S-curve through them. And I'm just very blessed and lucky to live here. So getting out in it is the way to do it.
Well, I think they're blessed to have you in North Fork and in Madera County. You've done a lot to support the community. Can you speak a little bit about your work with nonprofits and your support that you've done over the years?
I do donate quite a bit of art when people are doing silent auctions and things like that. One of my main partnerships is with the North Fork History Group. I've always been kind of a history nerd. And when I got to see the photographs they have taken from the late 1800s to like the 1940s, I got so inspired by what our town used to look like and the things that used to happen here that they let me paint a picture of the old sawmill that ran this town for many years. And it was 36 inches long. It was a really long painting showing all those logs laying in front of the equipment. And when I painted it, I was like, this painting is the history of our town. It doesn't belong just hanging, in someone's house. I need to give it to somebody. I need it to be seen. And I ran into a lady who was in the history group, and I happened to have the painting in the car, and I was telling her about it. And I just went and got it and said, here, give this to the history group and let them sell raffle tickets because they were trying to raise money to preserve our history. And so lots of people got to see it. They showed it for a whole year, selling tickets at different events before somebody finally won it. And then the person who won it contacted me immediately to say that her father used to work at that mill, and it made her cry when she saw the painting. And
Oh,
since then, I've donated a painting to them every year, and I did a whole series of 12 paintings of local history. They didn't provide all the photos, but most of them. And just simple things like I didn't know that the lakes in the High Sierras naturally had no fish in them, and early pioneers wanted to be able to fish in the High Sierras. And so they figured out a way to do it. They got these big canisters, they put them on the back of donkeys and mules and horses, and they filled them with little tiny fish, and they took them up to all the lakes and populated the lake. And like you said, I majored in biology, so I know that that's a really wrong thing to do biologically. But it's done now, and what I admire about it is just the human spirit to get things done. I see a need. How are we going to meet that need? Let's take sticks on the back of donkeys up into the High Sierra. So I did a painting of these pack mules going up. And so many people who saw that painting knew of somebody who did that job. It was their dad or their grandpa. And it, it brought tears to their eyes. And, there's a beloved restaurant on Bass Lake that no longer exists. That I painted it. People came and said, wow, my grandparents got engaged there. I used to go skating there. I had some of my best times of my youth there. And I ended up having to paint that one 3 times because people kept wanting that scene. bigger and bigger. And of course, I put it on cards and things. And I don't know, it really hit home with me how art can connect you to people. As a naturally kind of introverted person, the last person who would want to public speak, I find my art makes me so brave. I can talk about it all day. People want to talk about it with me. It brings out a whole nother side of your personality when you're passionate and you want to talk about what you do. And other people are passionate about it too. And I painted old trucks. I had this guy come to my art booth early on. He saw an old truck I had painted and his face just lit up. And his wife said, "You own that, don't you?" And he's like, "I do." And she's like, "Well, you should buy it." And he's like, "No, I've never bought art." And she's like, "Well, you never want anything. You like that." And he, like, okay. And he bought this painting. And I heard later from other people in the show that he, he unwrapped it from the bag I put it in and showed it to every person he passed. "Look at this painting I bought. Look at this dress." So,
See, and that's your mission. That's your mission, to bring joy.
well, art reaches people in ways that you just can't otherwise.
So about your day job that you had for many years, how is that interwoven with what you do now? How has that helped your art?
Well, I think that everybody has some kind of spark of creativity in them, and that sometimes our society encourages us to ignore those sparks. Like, get a job, make money. Don't worry about this drive inside of you that makes you want to weld or something that um you hear so many artists say that their parents told them, "Well, don't major in art, you'll never make a living." And I was never told that, but I did love art so much all through high school. I had the best art teacher all through childhood. Anytime there was an art project, I was all over it. But I never considered going into art in college. I don't know why, but I also loved biology. So it made sense for me to become a teacher. And I ended up teaching science for many years, but most of my career, I was an independent study teacher, which means I worked with high school students who, for some reason or other, had gotten off track to graduate with their class. And so my job was to meet with them one on one, figure out what they needed to do to graduate and get them there. And for a lot of kids, it stayed and it made connections. And I got to be super creative doing it because you had to get creative. If you get a 16-year-old teenage boy who doesn't want to read but has a great interest in fixing tractors, I can find a lot of stuff for you to read about fixing tractors, and we can work through that. If you have a teenager who has a normal ability to get through school but has a really horrible home life, I can help through that too. So I got to be creative throughout my career, but the whole time the art was still calling to me. And of course, high school kids had to take an art class, so I did get to do some art with kids over the years, but I didn't know what it would look like for me to get back into art. I just remembered how much I loved to paint in high school. And when I got that whole painting kit from my husband at age 50, I was just enthralled. I pretty much set it up in my dining room and just went to the library and got the book and started watching YouTube videos. And then I started meeting other artists like you and getting, just you have to move in little incremental steps as an artist. And one of the things that I think artists who haven't begun their journey yet need to hear the most is that you have to give yourself grace. You have to understand that you've got to walk before you can run. That vision you have in your head of what you want to paint, keep it there, but don't expect to get there the first time you take the brushes out. Just take the small steps and give yourself a lot of compliments for taking those steps.
That's great advice. I remember wanting to paint a portrait when I was first starting out, and my teacher said, "Don't paint anyone you know. Save
Right.
that for later. Save that for later." Well, so what inspires you the most? What really gets you going right now? I know that shifts over time.
Well, it's funny. Like yesterday, we went to a lake to paint, and I assumed that I would be painting the water. And I walked all around the lake and up some paths along the side. And the water was beautiful and the reflections were beautiful. There were clouds and trees reflected in the water. But I just kept looking at this little dirt path on the side and how the sun was filtering through the trees and the path was almost golden in the distance where the sun was hitting it the hardest. And I just, I know myself. If I try to paint something that's not like really sparking any excitement, I'm not going to enjoy it, and I probably won't get a painting out of it that I keep. So I was like, I like that path. I'm just gonna go paint that path. And everybody's like, why are you painting the path? Like, there's a lake here. I like the path. My advice once, like when you're looking at what everybody else is looking at, like let's say you're in Yosemite and everybody's painting half dome, turn around and see what's behind you, because it could be just as good in something that you haven't seen before.
So what advice would you give, and you were touching on this earlier, what advice would you give someone who gets stuck? What do you do when things get a little challenging? Life happens to all of us. How do you fill your well? How do you refuel?
So for some reason, and it's really common amongst artists, starting can be the hardest thing. Like you want to do it, so bad, and you're just like, don't know what to do first, and it feels intimidating to start. So I listen to a lot of artist podcasts, and the advice I hear the most is when that happens, start setting up your area, put your paints out, get the brushes out you want to use, clean up a little area that needs tidying, and pretty soon you kind of dive into the artist mindset. And getting into that zone is really important. If you're not in that zone because you're worried about something that's happening somewhere else in your house or something you need to do later that day, it's hard to get into that creative zone. So if you can have a space that you set aside and you tell your family members, please don't interrupt me unless the house is on fire, because if I get in the zone and you come in and say, what can we make for dinner tonight? Then I'm out of the zone. I have to start from the beginning again. I do keep extensive file of inspiring photographs on my iPad, and just flipping through them can remind me. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember when I took that trip. I really wanted to paint that old car I saw there, or that crazy looking building, or that beautiful beach. And then pretty soon you can kind of picture in your head like, yeah, I got a canvas. That's the right orientation for that. Maybe I'll give that a try.
That's just really good sound advice for people, because things do happen. And so the ability to shift is so important, and the ability to get past that. And I like your idea of keeping your creative time sacred.
And sometimes other people don't understand that. So you just have to explain it.
Yeah.
Have you ever been lost in reading a book and somebody starts
Yeah.
talking to you out of the blue? And then all of a sudden you're just like, wait, start again. What did you say? Because you
Yeah.
were in the zone of whatever you're reading. And the same thing happens with art. And what I find is when I'm in the zone, it's almost like my hand has a life of its own. I'm thinking,
Yes.
and I'm not thinking, what will be my next stroke, or how much lighter should I make that color? I'm just doing it. And the decisions are being made subconsciously. And that's where you want to be.
Well, you're there. You are totally there. Wow. So, what are you doing going forward? Let's talk about what your next projects are, or where you want to go now.
I got an exciting project coming up with another artist, Lisa Zilstra. She and I are going to teach an introduction to oil painting class in Oakhurst, California, at a gallery. And I have been asked for all the years since I retired, which is 5 years now, please teach a class, please teach a class, please teach a class. And I've just been like, oh, I taught for 35 years. I don't want to teach. I want to paint. But so I feel like I've finally gotten to the point where I'm ready to teach again. I'm looking forward to teaching again. This will be a very basic introductory class, and if it goes well, then there'll probably be more after that. But I do remember what it was like to be desperate for a teacher, because you can only get so far by yourself. And with YouTube videos and books, I just felt like I have all these questions. I need a person I can bounce them off with. And so I benefited so much from having some good people, and now I want to give that.
I love your speed painting videos. And so it would be great to actually have them for people to actually experience the whole process with you in person.
Those are kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Even I look at those sometimes and think, man, you can be kind of intimidated by a blank canvas. But when you watch those speed painting videos, you realize how quickly a painting can come together. I can tell you that little path I was telling you about. This is what I painted yesterday. And that was in about an hour, maybe an hour and a half.
Wow.
It's not done yet, but all the bones are there. And the paint was too wet for me to really keep going with it yesterday. And I had forgotten my favorite blue. So I've got a little bit I want to do to that still. But once you start seeing the steps of a painting in your head, which a teacher can really help you with, it can make all the difference.
All righty. Well, this is time to wrap up our session. Do you have any parting words for everybody out there about creativity, about staying motivated?
I just say creativity comes in so many forms. Maybe you're a creative gardener or a creative cook or a creative electrician. Whatever your creativity is, feed it and appreciate it and use it to enrich yourself, but also the people around you. When you share your creativity, everybody benefits.
Yes.
Thanks for spending time with us, Mary Beth. It was just great to hear your story. And for more information on Mary Beth, please visit marybethharrisonart.com.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with us today. You can find new episodes on the first and third Thursday of every month. Please visit our website, painterlylife.com, for more information. That's a wrap. We'll see you next time.